It's Toronto's podcast on the Canada's Podcast Network.
Today, I have the pleasure of interviewing Sean Reid. He is the president and head coach of Arrowhead Coaching and Facilitation Solutions, and based out of Grimsby, Ontario, which is pretty close to, it's in Niagara Region, and just a little ways away from Hamilton. So Sean, take it away. Tell us a little bit about yourself and how you became an entrepreneur.
Sure. Well, thanks a lot for having me, Leslie. So my story is I basically had worked in corporate environments for 25 years. I started out my career actually working in politics. I was a communications advisor minister in the 90s. Then I got into consulting a little bit, and then into the technology world. I worked for a software company for about 10 years in different corporate communications and internal communications leadership roles, and then took a complete left turn and went to work for an association in the construction industry for another 10 years as an executive position. And somewhere around the middle of last year, I got kind of came to this realization that I really wanted to start my own business and really kind of grow something on my own. And I wanted that business to focus on people and really working as much as possible, directly one-on-one with leaders. I've always been about helping leaders lead, and so that just in kind of, I think it was probably just some time, I don't know, sitting in the sunshine on my cottage dock or something like that. And I just said, this is what I want to do. And so I decided at the end of last year to launch my own company. We're a leadership coaching and consulting company, and we help leaders build great organizations. And it's been a really exciting ride since then.
Mm-hmm. So are you based mostly in Niagara Region, or are you serving all of Toronto, GTA?
I serve, so I when I started just doing coaching individually, my very first client was not even based in Canada. They were based in Pennsylvania. And so now our company serves clients in all over North America. So Edmonton, Toronto, Mississauga, Pennsylvania, and Minneapolis, all over the place. And the beauty of a lot of what we do, especially right now, is it's online. So we can serve our clients wherever they have.
Yeah. What do you think the benefits are of doing business in, I guess, Niagara?
Well, in the Niagara region, we have an amazing number of creative entrepreneurs emerging. And actually, this region is fascinating to see. There's more and more people moving into this region, and especially people who are creating or launching creative industry companies. So marketing agencies, writing agencies, public relations and government relations agencies. There's this intellectual community or entrepreneurial community forming here that is really interesting to see. I don't know if it's the close access to the wine region or the a little bit warmer temperatures or something, but all these creative minds are coming together in this community, and it's really, really exciting to see and be a part of that and kind of tap into that. And some of those people are clients for me, but others are really just our peers and suppliers and partners. And I'm really enjoying feeding off of that creative energy that this region has.
Mm-hmm. I 100% agree. For our listeners, I actually live in the same town as Sean, so we're part of the same community. So I can vouch for that point. And what do you find are some of the challenges of doing business in Niagara Region?
Well, I think that there's a few. Well, I think this is a region that has a a lot of emerging small businesses in the area. And then it has a handful of very large established companies in the region. So, there's there's a few really big agri-food companies, or there's a large waste management company not far from here, and but there's really sort of a handful of those big established companies, and then a lot of little agencies. And what we're kind of missing is that sort of middle. We don't have a ton of those mid-size clients right here. We're also challenged a little bit, I think, although I think our leadership are working on this right now, around access and transit and getting to those major urban hubs more quickly and easily. So that's been a bit of a challenge, just accessing some of the capital that you'll find in that sort of mid-sized market. But as both you and I know, so much of our work these days is done online that's not really a major issue, especially in my business, in the coaching and consulting business. It's not difficult to coach by a video conference or over the phone even, and do it really effectively. So it's that's something that I think this region, as it continues to grow and come into its own, is going to just become it's going to deal with, and it's going to become much more and more of a hotbed for entrepreneurial talent, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I'm going to shift gears a little bit, but some of our best ideas come when we're least expecting them. How do you disconnect and recharge? And how do you find some of your really fruitful ideas?
It's funny you should say that, because just this morning I woke up ahead of my alarm, and I had this idea in my head, and I had to get up and start writing about it right away. I totally disrupted I'm usually very deliberate about my morning routine, and I completely blew it up so I could just unload this creative energy into this article I had to write. But I think we have to be, oddly, we have to be intentional in order to be spontaneous and creative. We have to plan for spontaneity. If you can get your head around that for a second, we actually have to carve out time to access those things around us that we know give us that stimulation to ignite our creative energy. So for me, even in spite of this, isolation that we're in with the COVID-19, for me, sunshine is and daylight is just this igniter for me. And I will literally take time between meetings and just sit in front of my window here and stare out at the blue sky and the sunshine. And as crazy as that sounds, that actually is like, that fires me up, just to see. I don't know if it's the optimism and the symbolism of a blue sky and sunshine or something like that, but actually taking little steps, figuring out what those little igniters are for you, and everybody's different, but figuring out what those little creative igniters are for you, and actually being deliberate about making time to do those things. That's, for me, that's a strategy that's really worked to keep my creative energy and my physical energy up as we move particularly through these bizarre times that we're in right now.
So when you say, like, actually make time for it, do you actually set out time in a schedule and say, like, okay, I'm making time for just spontaneity here. I'm making time to just be creative.
I do.
Some people's schedules are just so jam-packed. So that's
well,
really
they are, but so the short answer is yes, I do. I do that. I actually schedule. I have my best time for writing, for example, is first thing in the morning, just like I described this morning. And so actually after my morning routine, which is a repeatable process that I go through every morning, I then have the first hour of my day is set aside for writing. Um, and then I have a set aside time in the middle of the day where I actually step outside, unless it's like really terrible weather. I'll step outside and go for a walk. You know, fortunately we're home right now, so I can go for a walk with my wife for, you know, we'll go for a 20-minute walk or something like that. And those are scheduled times in my day that I know I have to protect if I want to be effective the rest of the time. So yes, our days are completely hectic, but if we look at how we operate, each of us, we'll figure out certain secrets to actually helping ourselves operate more effectively. For me, a walk for 20 minutes outside, and we can do that here in West Niagara in spite of the COVID stuff. You know, if for me that is a really significant catalyst for keeping my energy up, especially in the second half of the day. You know, through that sort of that time at around 3 o'clock when we really would like a nap, you know, getting that fresh air injection really helps me propel through the rest of the day, so I finished as strong as I started. So yeah, I mean, if we discover that there are a handful of those kinds of things that really fuel us, then we do have to be deliberate about making time for them if we want to be effective.
That's really valuable advice. Thank you. So now I'm curious, what is your morning routine?
It's not rocket science, I'll tell you that. I get up, I'll tell you what, actually, I'll tell you what my morning routine right now, in all honesty, is I wake up and this is the part that I'm going to change, and I'll talk about that in a second, but I wake up and the first thing, if I'm being honest, that I do is I roll out of bed and I look at my phone and what's on it. And I'll come back to that in a second, you know, like email, I'll take a scan through what's emails, social media posts, etc. Then I get up, have a shower, get cleaned up. And then I walk downstairs and I spend time, about 15 minutes in prayer and reflection. Some people do meditation, some people do just a quiet time of solitude. For me, I'm a Christian, I pray. And that helps me kind of just get centered, get focused, you know, kind of reestablish what's most important for me. And then I'm off to the races. And I have some food. I often, although not consistently, but often, will then take 10 minutes and do some stretching or some sort of physical, like basic physical exercise, just to get my kind of literally get my posture and my kind of physical presence established for the day. And then I start my writing routine after that. So the morning routine is, you know, again, it's not rocket science, but it's got 2 or 3 things. It's got the nutrition, it's got a little bit of physical set up for the day, and it's got that time for mental and spiritual engagement that I need before I start my creative after that. So it's about an hour and a half to a 2-hour routine in general.
That's wonderful. Thank you for sharing.
Oh, and the part I forgot to mention, the part that I want to change though is this checking the email thing. There's a guy named Brandon Burchard who I like. He's a high performance coach out of the US, and he talks about this all the time. He's like, we totally can set our minds off in the wrong direction when we look at our phones first thing in the morning. And he's right. He's right. Sometimes it works great for me and it doesn't bother me, but sometimes, depending on what's sitting there in our inbox waiting for us, it can send our mind in the exact wrong direction. And that's the one thing I'm going to definitely be cleaning up in my morning routine pretty soon.
Yeah, it's a good habit to change. It's the inbox or the news, right? The news can
Yeah,
be,
the inbox, the news, you know, a social media post that really pushes your buttons, whatever it is for you. You know, I got to bring back, the problem for me is this is my alarm clock right now. So I got to bring back, I got to get myself just an old fashioned alarm clock that I can sit beside my bed, and I'm going to put the phone downstairs somewhere, you know, but I'm not there yet, but hopefully someday.
baby steps.
Yeah, exactly.
That's wonderful. So next question for you is, what book are you currently reading? And what would
Well,
you,
yeah, that's a great question. So before we started this interview, I was telling you that I spent a lot of my time during this COVID. I decided to use this time of less being around other people to really dive into some of my own thinking around my company in a different way. And so I've been reading a lot of marketing um, work. So I just wrapped up reading Donald Miller's Building a Story Brand book, which is a great book on marketing. And I've got another book here by Russell Brunson on, you know, funnels and building good lead generation strategy that I'm starting to tick through. So I'm a big fan of, you know, the latest and greatest you know, business books, and so those are a couple that I've been reading through lately.
that's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
So regarding, you said you're working a lot on the marketing of your
Mm-hmm.
business. I'm just wondering, what's your vision for your business and kind of a 5-year plan for your business? Where would you want to see it?
That's a great question, because one of the things that we help other companies do is have have good, compelling 5-year plans. My 5-year plan but the first thing we tell our clients is that it's okay for those plans to shift, and that my 5-year plan has shifted too, even in the very short time that we've been going. But the plan here, we believe very much in the power of one-on-one coaching. So what we would like to be able to do is build a consulting and a coaching agency that is serving clients at least in North America, if not around the world, but uh, delivering really powerful one-on-one coaching or consulting services where, you know, one of our consultants or one of our coaches is working directly with an executive or a leadership team and really diving deep into what's going on in their business and what's going on in their leadership, helping them not just come up with sort of tactical solutions day to day, but really transform their business, get at some of the underlying barriers or obstacles that might be getting in the way of them really taking things to the next level. So we're going to be at one of those coaching. A lot of coaches go in a different direction where they do a lot of group coaching and a lot of masterminds and you know, big webinar programs and conferences and this. That's not our vision. Our vision, we might do a little bit of that, but our vision is really to actually scale the number of coaches who really get what our vision is about and what our values are, and just bring those out to more and more organizations and to more and more leaders around the world.
Great. So now I'm going to shift gears a little bit, and I want to talk about COVID-19 and how you're holding up and what you're
Sure.
doing, really. So what's the most exciting thing that you've been working on right now? And I'm noticing that either some people are either really busy in this time or they're very bored. And so it's a multi-part question. Where do you stand, and what advice would you give to entrepreneurs who are looking for things to do with their extra time?
Well, so one of the interesting aspects of marketing, a coaching, and as you know, a coaching and a consulting company is, you know, we want to serve our clients, but one of the ways we actually have to get out there to market our client to potential clients is actually get content out to them, out to the market, and that involves a lot of times, you know, sharing our ideas, you know, putting them out there either in the form of videos or blogs or or traditional media, but getting our ideas out to the market. And that took me, I'll be honest, that was not why I got into coaching and consulting. I am the guy who actually likes being behind the scenes, helping leaders excel. I don't like to really be the one that's putting myself out there as the star of the show. Um, so it took me a long time to get comfortable with that. Um, but I did, and in this time especially, I decided that I needed to break out of my comfort zone and put myself out there as the kind of voice for our company, and um, and so I did. And so we've got, we established, I told you I established that writing routine where I'm just producing blog content or video content every morning now. And the beauty of what we're in right now is there's no shortage of inspiration, because we're all, not only is it, and what I discovered was, not only is it me having my act together and helping those who don't get their act together, but I'm actually learning every day through this experience, and all I'm doing is just passing on what I'm experiencing, what I'm learning onto the marketplace. So quite literally, a blog post I'll write one day is based on something I only discovered for myself a couple of days earlier. And I think that's sort of what we're supposed to do as leaders, is just, we don't lead like we've got our act together all the time. We lead authentically, and then we pass on what we're learning to those that we're trying to lead.
Absolutely. So Sean, I saw on your website that you experienced something, a neck injury a few years ago. I'm not sure exactly how long ago, that put you in isolation for a few weeks, and you were isolated to your bedroom. And you did glean a few lessons from that are helping with this isolation now. What advice would you give to entrepreneurs?
Ironically, I'm still there. I'm still in my, that's where I'm talking to you from today. So what happened, so a couple of years ago, almost exactly 2 years ago, actually, I was very sick with fever and flu, and ironically, it was a fever and flu, and I fell. I basically collapsed, and I messed up my neck. So I actually ended up herniating 4 discs in the back of my neck. And not only that, but I basically set off this kind of nervous, something in my nervous system, where I was basically like lit up like a Christmas tree with numbness and tingling, to the point of really not being able to move, all through my upper body. And so I was totally incapacitated. The only way I could really kind of function was if I wore this neck brace and didn't walk around very much. So my doctor said, until we get this sorted out, you just have to stay put. And they were saying we were probably gonna have to have surgery and a whole bunch of other things. So for, more than a month, for months, I couldn't go anywhere until the healthcare system could figure out what was wrong with me, and get a treatment plan together. So I basically ended up sitting. I had been, just to put this in context, I had been work as an executive in this association I was working for, traveling a lot, like, 3 or 4 times a month for a few days at a time across Canada. And so now I was sitting in my room, and that was extremely challenging. And I first discovered, it was the first time I confronted my mortality in a significant way. It's the first time I realized how how much meaning we get from the work that we do, and from the relationships that we have, when I was finally cut off from a lot of those relationships. And you learn a lot about yourself, when a significant part of your life is suddenly taken away from you. And I'm sure there are a lot of listeners and viewers of this podcast who would know exactly what I'm talking about. But in that process, I learned a number of things that were helping me get through it and be constructive and be productive and be positive. So at the time I wrote this blog, and then recently, I think what you're referring to is I referred back to that in terms of learnings that we could now apply in the COVID situation. So, there were a number of learnings from that. I think, two that really pop into my mind were, just because we're shut in right now doesn't mean we're disconnected from people. But again, like the other things, like the creative stimulus and the morning routines, we have to be intentional about it. And so I actually just posted on this not long ago. There's a video. We have to be intentional about connecting with people regularly every day. And so I actually posted a little video the other day about what might that look like. And I said, you can do it three ways. You can connect with three people each day, in particular. I mean, you're going to connect with others, but three people each day. Someone you love, someone you lead, and someone you serve every day. And you write down at the beginning of your day, you write down who those three names are, and you go and you plan to reach out to them. Ideally with a phone call, but if not, you send them a message, say, hey, I'm just thinking about you, whatever it is. But you reach out and connect with those people intentionally every day. And that connection is a very powerful thing. Even if we're introverts, just having that one-on-one connection reminds us of, it reminds us of something really deep inside of us, that we're human beings, and we just, it's part of who we are, is to be connected with other people. So it's a way of just being intentional about that. So that was number one. And the other thing that I really would share now is you never stop learning. And so I became very intentional about my own professional development in that time, just as I am now, using this time. I made a plan. I said, okay, I'm here. Thankfully, we're in a context where there's all kinds of great content online, webinars, books, whatever it is. And I made a plan to get serious about certain aspects of professional development. And I've just done the same thing as we were talking about earlier. This time is just I'm really working right now on developing my marketing skill sets in a new way. And so that was another thing. Is just be really intentional. Use this time for something. For me, it was professional development. For you, it might be something else. But be intentional about, how am I going to grow in this time, and make a plan for that.
Thank you so much. That's really valuable advice that you're passing down.
Great.
Well, those are the only questions I have for you today. But I just wanted to thank you so much, Sean, for coming on Canada's podcast and sharing all of your advice and your experience, and especially the advice for passing along your experience from the neck injury and how that applies to COVID-19 and our experience now. I know a lot of people are very isolated and lonely and looking for things to do. I'm one of them. Well, I think you go through a process of getting used to it, but that's very helpful.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's totally normal to feel all those things, and completely understandable. It's a strange time we're in, but if we make a plan to do one or two or three things that are just, to keep pushing us forward, we'll do okay. Yeah. So anyways, it's been I really appreciate this opportunity. You guys have a great podcast, Leslie, and I was delighted to be a part of it today.
So where can our viewers find you online?
Well, I'm on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, but the easiest place to start is my website, which is arrowheadcoaching.ca.
So arrowheadcoaching.ca. All right.
Right.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much, Sean, and we'll talk soon, okay?
All right. Thanks, Leslie.
Bye.